Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs.
Welcome to the Dish on Dogs podcast. I am Jackie Bondanza. I'm not Jackie Bondanza. I can't live up to that high ideal, but I am Rob Flanagan stepping in for Jackie, and we are here with Karen.
Yes, hello.
Here at training, and it's been such an amazing week so far, just getting to know you, your father Jim a lot better. And we're just going to kind of go into a little bit of your history, and I love to always start with this question. What drew you to Houndstown? There's so many franchises out there, so many different concepts you could have picked, but what was kind of your journey to Houndstown?
So originally I started looking into creating our own doggy daycare just from scratch, not looking into franchises. And then I started getting an idea of what's involved with that, and it was very overwhelming. So we immediately started looking into franchises. And we looked at one specific franchise and decided every time we were talking to them, the money was going up and up and up for the build out. And it was well over $1 million by the time we were prepared to sign and get into it. So we went ahead and started looking into different ones. And the one that drew me in was Houndstown. And the biggest thing was the dog-based philosophy and just the dog information that they had there. Really just for focusing on the dog's needs and the dog's natural psychology and things like that. So especially talking with Mike for the first time, I was immediately sold because you can tell that he knows a lot about dogs and obviously just really it comes naturally to him.
So having a founder who's been doing this for over 40 years and the fact that we build the entire business, we say we build it from the viewpoint of the dog, 18 inches.
Right.
That was a draw.
That was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And especially the cost obviously was a big bonus too because it's not super expensive, but also it's not super expensive because we're focusing on the dog's needs rather than like the other franchise was focusing on what looks good to the people.
Correct.
So we are here at Houndstown focused more on functionality with the dogs versus what the people are going to be looking at and liking.
Yeah.
So
we mentioned this earlier. You're doing this with your father.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So what has that been like? Like, how did he come into the picture? Were you both part of it in the beginning? I'd love to just hear some more about what that's been like.
It's, it just comes naturally to us. I've worked with him actually for 12 years in dentistry. He was a dentist in Aurora, Illinois for a very long time, for 40 some years. And his father before him was a dentist. And then actually his grandfather was a dentist. So we had 3 generations of dentistry in Aurora, Illinois. And we worked together. Like I said, I worked in his practice for 12 years. So we're just pretty used to working together. He retired from dentistry and I have moved on and I'm still in dentistry now. But I started looking into this and he thought that he could be a good help because he needs to teach somebody all of this business practice that he's learned.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have anyone to teach that to right now. So I figured, teach me all of the business knowledge you have. And we'll do it with dogs, not dentistry.
Well, I think that's beautiful. And I've seen that a lot in franchising where there's a parent who has developed a lot of business acumen. And they want to pass that down and leave a legacy.
Right.
But they don't want to recreate a business from scratch or do something all new. And so franchising provides a really nice vehicle for that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just having a lot of these things set in place on how to handle dogs, how to do things like that, that brought me a lot of relief because I'm sure I could figure it out, but no one can figure it out as well as Mike has over the last 40 years that he's been working with dogs. So,
yeah. So as you've been going through the process and you're learning Houndstown, what are some of those business acumen things that your father's brought to the table for you?
Definitely financial. He is very familiar with financial things, even just as simple as working with QuickBooks. He is not very technologically savvy, but as far as QuickBooks, he knows how to get around on that and what to look at and what numbers to go to, whereas I look at that and it's just a big jumble of numbers for me.
Yeah.
just so mostly financial things, but also just talking to people and having that good personable skill and being able to make those connections with other people very easily. And again, he's been practicing dentistry for 40 years in Aurora. So like when we started doing our build out, we have old patients that are now our electrician and plumber and people like that. So we're familiar with a lot of people in the town. He's already made those connections. Even with working with the city to get different permits and things like that, he knows people on the city board and stuff. Yeah. So it's been very helpful to have those connections. Yeah. But also just showing me the ropes of so many other things, and I'm sure in the future just learning the ropes of so many different things.
Yeah.
So
you've been at training. We've been at training for about 3 days now, so got 4 or 5 more to go. But, this is kind of a tough question to kind of just distill it into one thing. But what has been kind of the number one aspect of training that has gotten you excited, even more excited about moving to your opening?
So nothing against the classes where we sit down and learn. That's all been very informational. But definitely the hands-on things are right up my alley. That's exactly what I wanted to come here and learn. Getting my hands on some dogs and learning how to actually handle them. Like we just did the bath. I give my dogs baths all the time, but it's different. It's a different procedure, different policy, different environment.
Yeah.
So it's just good to get your hands on and,
That's great feedback. This is the first training that we've added more of that component. And so what we've been doing is really talking to franchisees that have already opened. And we'll always do that. We talk to people who are going through the process and always get feedback on how we can always be better. And from that feedback from the training before you, it was like, we want more hands-on. So we restructured the entire training this time so that there's classroom in the morning. It's about 3 hours. But then you have the stations for the point of sale, washing, dog grouping, temperament tests, marketing stations. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very important part because you can hear people explain how to handle dogs all day long, but actually getting a dog on one of the slip leashes and walking them down the hallway with dogs on either side in playrooms is very different than just hearing about it. So
absolutely,
definitely a big bonus. Plus, I find it a lot more fun handling dogs than talking with people or listening to people. So
you're not the only one. Yes, there's a reason a lot of us get drawn towards the pet industry for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that what that's driving towards it is to your opening because we want that opening to be as successful as possible.
Yeah.
We don't want you to experiment on your customers. So we want you to be as prepared as possible with all those kind of hands-on training. So kind of going through that hands-on training part. So a lot of franchisees, before they get to training, it's like, how am I going to group the dogs? How am I going to do this temperament test? People are a little nervous. But I'd love to hear from you. Were you a little nervous? And how do you feel now having gone through a lot more of the hands-on training?
So for me, I think Jim might have a different answer for this, but for me, handling dogs, I was not nervous about at all. I was very excited about that. Mostly for me, it's getting through the build out. That's what's causing a lot of stress and anxiety. And just making sure that we are on top of the financial end of it. And that, obviously we have money to run a business and we're not going to run out. But really just the hands-on dog stuff, I am ready. I feel even more ready after this. I wasn't nervous at all about it, but I definitely feel more confident in my dog handling abilities and my abilities to train staff.
You have the lead already on you.
Yeah, I haven't taken this off all day. Yeah. So
that's how you really know you're a Houndstown franchisee is when the lead is just on you and you forget about it.
Yeah.
It's just that you walk into a grocery store and you're like, what is that?
Yeah. In the dental field, a lot of the time, even before COVID, we'd leave our masks on, walk into the store with a mask under our chin. But now it'll be my kennel lead. So that'll be good.
So as we move from training to some of the marketing things you've been doing leading up to your opening, how helpful has it been having the franchise behind you, building the Facebook groups and all the things that we've been going over in training? How helpful has that been for you?
So that has been super helpful. Again, when I was working with my dad, he tried really hard to stay on top of marketing, but as I've mentioned, he's not very technologically savvy. So he often put me in charge of the social media, which was fine, but I didn't have much guidance as to what to post on there, what was going to draw people in. So we tried all different things. I obviously probably didn't do the best at it, but I did my best. And it worked, it helped. It just wasn't to the fullest capacity. So I think it's definitely good to have input on what I should be posting, have that information available and those pictures and things accessible easily so that I can, if I'm in a pinch and I don't have a picture of a dog to post right away, I can get one.
Yeah.
And have more guidance to be able to do that. Marketing, I think, was one of the things also. Starting up from scratch, we had no idea where to start with marketing.
Yeah.
So that's really another big thing too, is just...
I think it's one of the strongest reasons people join the franchise. I hear so many franchisees, just not Houndstown, but other ones, where it's like, I got into the business to run that business. I didn't get into it to be marketer.
Right.
And what I love about Houndstown, of course, I'm a little biased, but it's how much that playbook is so solidified. And so we make it really easy to do Facebook and to do Google, do any other type of digital or or traditional marketing.
Right.
So that's also very positive feedback.
Huge bonus. Yeah. Great marketing team. It was very helpful. Meeting them in person is a little more intimidating, so I'll be posting more on my Facebook. But it's okay.
Well, and I've heard that feedback too, and it's always coming from this place of, and you've seen the other stores that have opened so strongly.
Right,
know,
so it's a necessary thing.
You can argue that it's directly correlated. There's a lot of variables, of course, but there's so much correlation to how that pre-opening marketing is going and building out the Facebook group and those sort of things.
Right,
absolutely. So
absolutely.
about right now, how many people do you have in your Facebook group?
So right now we have just over 100.
Okay, that's great.
And that's, I'll leave it at that. I won't admit that it's all friends and family and then other Houndstown members.
Well, no, but I think that, I wouldn't downgrade that. That's how you start it.
Right.
And then slowly you start seeing it's like, there's only 5 more today, only 10 more today. And before you know it, it's like 30 join and then 20 join the next day. It really just starts to snowball as you keep up doing that work.
Right.
So
that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah. So our fabulous Corinne, our opening coordinator, has it been working with her?
It's been great. She's been very helpful. I've had a lot of questions. I've asked her the same question probably 5 times. At least once a week. So, it's been really good and really easy to figure things out with her and just send a quick email and she responds or ask on the call. And it's
That's great.
Easy going as long as I remember to make the call.
Yeah.
But
Corinne's going to see that and she's going to laugh and chuckle.
I hope so. She might just roll her eyes and that's okay too.
She may do that too. So what my kind of question before we get into your specific locations, a question I always like to ask every franchisee, and yes, I know we're not live, but we're being recorded. But I believe that at the foundation of franchising is trust. And that trust is, people mistake it for being reliable. And to me, reliable is, hey, I'm going to do this and I do it. But trust is, you got my back.
Right.
And there's always disagreements. There's always people see things differently, but it's really this emotion of knowing that you got our back. So I like to ask, do you trust Houndstown? As you've been going through this process, have you felt that somebody's had your back?
Yes, absolutely. And I know that there have been some, not many, just one moment where we were not very comfortable, but immediately we were able to reach out and communicate that with somebody, and it was immediately taken care of. We were listened to, we were heard, and I think that definitely built up our trust even more than it already was. Yeah. So I fully trust the team that I'm working with right now, and I trust that I've made the right decision going with Houndstown, because I don't think the other franchise we were looking into would be as responsive.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and when things are being recorded, I'll ask who it is. We won't say it on tape. But I've been doing franchising for so long, and I've seen the best, and I've seen, the things that aren't the best. But whenever I ask that question, my heart beats a little bit because I'm always hoping the answer is yes, but I also am courageous enough to hear that it's not.
Right.
Because the answer is no, then we need to immediately step into a different type of dialogue
Yeah.
and see what needs to be repaired. What do we need to rebuild something? It's a 10-year contract, and a lot of franchises renew for another 10. It can last longer than a marriage.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first talked to you and Jim, what I talked about was like, we're partners. Like, we are business partners in this. As your asset grows, our asset grows, but you're also my customer. Like, the reality is, once you're open,
Right.
you're paying that royalty. Franchisees sometimes will say, I'm paying your salary. And I'm like, you are. Mm-hmm. Like, part of your royalty does go to my salary. And I have to kind of balance between those two hats sometimes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it can be tricky, but I think if people are honest and they have those kind of conversations, it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were very quick to reach out to us when you knew that we were having a small issue. And again, just that response and being sure that you hear what we're talking about, it was very helpful to build that trust even more.
Yeah. Let me get my wallet so I can give you $20.
Oh, yes,
to pay
please.
for that.
You can.
I did not do that. None of that was prepped, anything like that. So the other part that I love about franchising is that you're a local owner. You're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to be in your community. What's the response been like in your community leading up to your opening?
So I have a lot of friends, obviously, that are very excited for it. I've been going to the dog park pretty frequently
great.
and just talking about it. And a lot of people are very excited because we don't have a daycare on the west side of Aurora right now.
Okay.
All of the daycares are like 30-minute drive away. So it might be convenient for some people who work by those, but for other people, it's not so convenient. So having that accessibility is, I think, very exciting. Mm-hmm. And once we start the advertisements and things, I think there will be even more of a excitement for it.
Yeah.
But even just taking over the building that we're in now, that we're doing the build out in, that building's been empty for probably 6 or 7 years now.
Okay.
So slowly that little shopping center buildings are closing and kind of reopening and then closing. So I'm hoping that this will kind of bring new life to that area and get it up and running again, at least for Houndstown. So.
And I think that's a big, that strong competitive advantage for Houndstown too, is that the real estate can exist in these light industrial, a little bit off the beaten path. We're more of a destination than just a extra step on an errand,
right?
Which is an advantage, I think. When you're coming into it. So what about the rest of your family? What did they think when you came to them and you said, "I'm going to open up a doggy daycare"?
Yeah, so my sister laughed and she was like, well, duh, obviously. And then once we decided it would be a franchise, she was even more excited because that's, again, we explained the difference between opening our own and doing that. But I come from a family of 4 siblings. So they all were not very surprised that I was going to be doing something with dogs, as I've been working with rescue and fostering for the past 13 years now. My husband was a little bit surprised of opening a business instead of trying to go get a job at a existing business. But finding, that we have a need for one here and there's not one here.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be great.
Yeah.
He's gotten on board pretty quickly and he can't wait until we're up and running and he can join in on the Houndstown fun. So, yeah. And
He'll be an official townie.
Yeah, my closest family, my dogs at home, they don't even know how excited they'll be, but I'm sure they'll be very happy to not be at home all day alone. They'll be.
And how many dogs do you have?
I have 3.
Okay.
Too many. It's too many. But so I'm sure they'll be very excited to be in a fully interactive doggy daycare instead of at home on the couch.
Yeah. And what are their names?
I have Callie and Joe and Rigby.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were they rescues?
Yes, all of them. So Rigby started off as a foster dog, and he got adopted out twice and then returned twice. So I adopted him. Mm-hmm. Callie, we got from a shelter in Chicago, actually. She was only 3 months old. We picked her up on her first day out on the floor. And then Joe, I found on Facebook Marketplace. Someone was giving him away for free. He was only 9 months old, but they couldn't train him, and he was very aggressive. And I brought him home, and he is the sweetest, most docile dog I've ever met in my life. Yeah. But yeah.
I mean, just seeing your affection for dogs, I can see the synergy into Houndstown where we don't breed discriminate and, you know, that sort of thing. And
right. And when I fostered at least, I did over 30. I think it was like 37 or something, but at least 27 of them were pit bulls. Most of them were pit bulls. And I love all dogs. I don't discriminate. But I did have a bad experience once with a purebred yellow lab, and that dog bit me. And I was like, out of all these pit bulls I've had, they've never once hurt me. But this yellow lab, he hurt me, and I did not like that. But so I still have a soft spot in my heart for pit bulls. Yeah. So to see that they don't breed discriminate is obviously very important. Yeah.
So you said one thing that I thought was interesting was you're talking about your husband and going into getting another job, go working for somebody else. And you clearly come from a family of entrepreneurs. But what was that part that didn't, that little part of your soul that was just like, I don't want to go work for somebody else? Can you say more about that?
Well, the biggest thing for me was just the fact that I really wanted to learn as much as I could from my dad. Yeah. And I could tell, not to put words in his mouth or anything, he'll probably deny this, but I could tell he really wanted to teach somebody all the things he had learned from all the years of running a business. And that was important to him. And I don't want to get upset right now, but I feel a little bit guilty that I didn't go to dental school. My grandpa tried to convince me. He tried to convince me a little. My dad gave up a little easier because he realized it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't for me. And actually, he was the one who came up with the idea, well, why don't you just start your own? Yeah. And I was like, well, wow, that's an idea. And then thinking about it more and more, I was like, yeah, that'd be really important because then I'll have something going for me, but also he can help with that.
Well, I think it's a beautiful thing that you just said. And I appreciate the honesty too. Yeah. I mean, what I hear there is it wasn't about being a dentist per se. It was about the family heritage. Right. And the heritage was about working together with your family. That's what mattered. Yeah. And being able to pass that down is what was really powerful.
Yeah, just all the knowledge. He's accumulated lots of knowledge over the years. So someone needs to learn from it.
Well, and I can relate. I have a daughter, and she's much younger. She's 4. But I think about that right now. Like, oh, I've kind of done this, and like, how would I pass on that legacy? Right. And just seeing your dad and you together at training, it's been very, very powerful and very touching for me. Like, I'll see you guys at the table together, and I'll see him kind of lean over and whisper something. And then you lean over and show him how to use his phone. And, it's really cute. Yeah. I'm just saying as a joke, I haven't seen you lean over.
Well, I'm not the one showing him how to use his phone. That's my 4-year-old niece that does that. But, yeah, no, it's very different for me right now not working with family because even my work family that I'm not related to, they're still family to me. Absolutely. It's still very much family. Even coming in here, I feel like, especially Mike and Jackie, from just spending a few days here last year for Discovery Day, I just feel like that's family right there. Yeah. So it just kind of goes with the business.
Yeah, it does. It does. So this is my last question. You wave that proverbial magic wand. It's a year from now. You've been opened. What does your life and your business, what does everything look like a year from now?
So hopefully a lot like Ronkonkoma, where we have lots of very full playrooms. Dogs in here every day. But ultimately, just being in the business still, I would really love to be there, be running it, be the face at the front desk every day for everybody. Yeah. And ultimately, my end goal is to be able to afford to have foster dogs in the facility, to be able to provide that environment for them, not only to give them a place outside of the shelter to go to, but also to provide that enrichment and socialization, and hopefully help to make them even more adaptable. And just like they've done in a couple locations, have customers adapt them and then just get the word out that they're available and, have a place for them to find a new home. Yeah. So
that sounds beautiful. And I very much look forward to kind of being a partner on that journey. And we'll put it on the calendar a year from now, whatever it is.
We
September.
will check in on that.
But I'm pretty confident, just knowing you as we've gotten to know each other, you will manifest that very easily.
Right. Yeah, I sure hope so. And it helps that I have the connections already with our local municipality and everything, the shelter. So that definitely helps. But
right. Well, thank you very much. That is the end of our Dish on Dogs podcast. I am Rob Flanagan, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thanks for watching another exciting episode of the Dish on Dogs podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube on the Dish on Dogs podcast. If you're a listener, you can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and all your other podcast platforms. For more information, click the link in the description. We'll see everybody next time.